right, welcome back to Akweya TV. This is the part 2 of the conversation with the director of the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. And if you haven't watched part 1, please, the link is going to be there in the description for you. And we are at the lovely head office of the Center for Democracy and Development in Abuja. Dr. Dauda Garuba, we're talking on the naming of the building after Dr. Kaede Fayemi, and in all the conversation you've talked about him coming to sit down for a whole 2-day conversation, you know, on strengthening democracy. And that's a rare thing, you know, for people who have been governor, minister, they just come for opening ceremonies and leave. What was that conversation about?
Well, we are a group of like-minded organizations decided to do an x-ray on what progress have we made with our democratic projects. And we came to the conclusion that, well, we've had some milestones, which we are not going to deny.
Yeah.
Top of which is even free speech.
Yeah.
Even though we are also largely concerned now about the shrinking civic space.
And all
but
the
fact,
cyber stalking.
Exactly, and all that is going on. But we also have come to terms with the fact that much more than we expected, our democracy isn't delivering the good for the common man. That, for instance, instead of delivering good governance, the experience over the years, which is now also getting to the level of concern and proportion, is that corruption is now high. It's also that there is high insecurity. It's also that even the development we are supposed to witness, leveraging economic prosperity, is difficult for the poor man to survive in the Nigeria of today. And even when you are sick, it becomes impossible for you to even afford the drugs that will be recommended in the hospital based on the experiences of bad governance in the country. So the only thing we thought was going to be the solution to this is, how do we have a convening where we're going to have the opportunity to talk to ourselves? And because amidst all this is the fact that other smaller countries in the continent and in the sub-region are making progress. Things as basic as elections.
Yeah.
You don't find free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria.
But wasn't 2023 freer than almost any other one? I think so.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I think the popular opinion, it couldn't have been, what you are saying couldn't have been the correct thing. But the fact also remains that even if it was correct that 2023
yeah,
was free, the fact remains that elections are not just about being seen as free, but being free, but also being seen as free. That is very essential.
Yeah.
But the question you ask, if you go to the streets and ask the common man,
yes,
if elections are free, or if the 2023 elections were free,
yeah,
he probably may not say the same thing.
Isn't that the function of our narrative?
I said he probably may not say so. And if you also see it, given the number of registered voters, I doubt if you needed to have somebody as the president of Nigeria with 6 million or 7, 8 million votes. You get it?
Yeah.
For me, that's not popular enough.
No, it's not popular enough.
That's between 25 to 26% of the registered voters.
Yeah.
I just came back from Ghana in December.
Yeah.
Where I went for election observation.
Yeah.
And they obviously had a higher
turnout
percentage
yeah.
of voter turnout. And this is where like 56% and over, you get it? So sometimes there are senses in which you just ask yourself, sometimes the figures we banded, how correct
are they?
And so even if they are correct, having 26% of the voter population casting votes also speaks to something.
It does.
That they are not getting the dividends of democracy. Yeah. That is why you have that huge apathy. So in that context, the conversation about credibility and whatever you say about the 2023 elections is not something that should be of interest. Is why the question you should ask is, why are we having 75% of the people who are qualified
to vote,
capable of exercising their voting right, sitting at home?
That's one way is to say that they sat at home. Another way is if machines raised this before, that we were counting turnout based on what the machines do, right? Or when people cast their votes. But a lot of people turned out, but were not, either because of machines or because of delays, they didn't cast their votes and then they left. So a lot of factors made people who came out not to vote. But we have, I think it's a flawed thing that we are tying turnout to only those who voted when there are lots of factors between the turning out and the actual voting. Whether the direct data, the machines didn't do their work either to accredit, or people dispersed after waiting for materials for so long, or different things happened.
Yeah, but relatively, the experience with the 2023 elections, when you compare it to the 2019 and the 2015, the technology challenge was not much about accreditation, but much about IREV, that is the posting of results. So the turnout issue has not been clearly defined as the problem in this. I mean, in terms of the machine, it's not been clearly defined as the obstacle to the machine situation.
Because what happened, what was posted online and on the IREV became the basis for people to say, okay, only 6 million votes determined who was the winner. I mean,
no. What I'm saying, it wasn't really 6 million votes. It was 8 million plus.
Million votes,
but the fact is that if you were to take the 6 million of the opposition
lowest,
party, that's the PDP, take the 6 million votes of the Labour Party and fuse it to, and then the other, what do you call it, the smaller markets that you find in other parties put together. Where does that sit in a situation where you needed to have almost like about 95 million votes? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In fact, if somebody comes out tomorrow to say that we even need to interrogate the numbers we banded about whether we actually have that
95 million,
whether the voter register itself is up to that, what is going to be your response to that?
Yeah, no, that for me, those are...
For me, we need to do a forensic, even on those, a forensic audit on those things.
Because politicians, it's like when they are declaring assets now. Some politicians will declare trillions or a billion, so that when they, go into office and amass, they'll say they actually even became poorer while they were in office.
Actually, that works. That works because you have a code of conduct bureau that is not financially empowered to verify what has been declared.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity of working with Agora Policy on this. I mean, Agora Policy, founded by Waziri Adio, the former executive secretary of Native. And I moved through code of conduct offices to actually interrogate some of these things. And I've realized that one very easy way to destroy institutions that are established to drive anti-corruption in the country is to starve them of funding.
Yeah.
And that is what is happening in that sector. But ordinarily, it is expected that when public office holders submit their forms, their asset declaration form, the institutions should find a way to go and verify the claims that
have been made
in those forms. So if you have had people who submitted and you didn't verify their assets to be sure that what was documented is actually there, then it's also the responsibility of government. And not providing fund for those public institutions to perform those functions, you are, unannounced, by way of unannouncing it, killing the institutions.
Okay.
And of course, that is what you see every day. I expect that by the time we are in the processes again where people are defending budgets on behalf of the institutions they represent, I will expect that at the National Assembly level, that these are institutions that are supposed to be prioritized in terms of making resources available to them and also making the resources to do their work, the resources to build capacity, and the resources to ensure that they are not forced into looking at what somebody is dangling before them to make them turn their faces away from doing their work. So these are some of the things that we have not over the years prioritized.
I was one who digressed us in this whole conversation. We were talking about your priorities as CDD under your tenure, and then we started from the strengthening.
Yeah, I think what we are identifying those missteps that we have taken since 1999.
Yeah,
we decided that there is the need to strengthen this democracy that we want. And we decided about it because increasingly in the sub-region, this West African sub-region, we are seeing the military guys are trying to make attempts to come back.
Yeah.
Apart from Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, where we have experienced recent stuff, we have also seen attempts by countries in the region organizing civilian coups. I call it civilian coups because what they are doing now is to engage in unconstitutional, we call it unconstitutional coup, or if you like, making changes to the constitution. You see that going on in Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
And when I particularly look at the Côte d'Ivoire case, I know how much time I invested in CDD as Senior Program Officer for Peace and Security, having to reconcile organized program with West African Civil Society Forum, WACSOF, to find a way to reconcile the civil society, who became divided in the conflict between Laurent Gbagbo and the President Alassane Ouattara. And all that is what is being rubbished now. And I've also seen also in the last couple of months, or if you like, few years, rumored about coup or attempted coup in Republic of Benin, in Syria alone. And very recently, people were going to talk about another one about to happen in Republic, which was now either a Republic of Benin in the northern part, who were now interpreted whether people were now concerned whether is it really an attempted coup or insurgents who are coming in, or so several interpretations about that. Okay. But what we are saying in effect is that it is clear that our democracy is not healthy, both in Nigeria and in the sub-region, and we need to do something about strengthening it. So that is the context in which we brought about that. Because we often argue, which of course I am a strong believer in, that even the worst democracy is better than the best military regime.
Why? Because I'm asking why, particularly in the context of the AES.
I'm going to respond to that about the why. Since what has happened in the Sahel happened, most of the time, because WhatsApp being now the very easy tool
for conversations,
bad or good, and it moves very fast, especially when you are communicating fake news, and even you're going to find several things as if immediately after those coups in these 3 countries, things just started working well. And you are going to see the infrastructures, the caterpillars, the agricultural work, and all those things that are going on in the country. All the countries have just started doing well.
Yes.
And you and I know to fix a country takes a lot of time. And we know that it is not correct. And we also know because we have connection with civil society organizations in those countries. And the conversation is about how are you people surviving? There are people who, by virtue of being vocal, they are forcefully recruited to come and fight insurgents in those countries. Because natural resource has become a huge issue around which conflicts in those countries. And of course, the conflicts have been adduced by the military guys to be the reason why they took over. But what we have seen in the last couple of, maybe in the last 2 years or whatever, when this thing became rife, is the fact that the conflicts have not in any way been doused. They are there. And there are no indications that they are succeeding much more than the civilians they took over power from. So in this context,
but they have succeeded in...
But freedom has been frozen.
But they've given us freedom. I mean, those countries...
Freedom to talk is completely frozen.
But they are free now from France. That's one freedom.
I think this is also... this is an area where we are missing the point. We miss the point in this area because since this conflict started about the disagreement about whether the boys should come or boys should not come, the conversation had always been like, okay, because ECOWAS is against this coup, because it means you are either against the coup or if you are against the coup, it means you are supporting France.
Well, not
ECOWAS and France they don't have the same position on this issue. Because ECOWAS also recognizes the fact that France has been an obstacle to the kind of progress
that ECOWAS needs
to move this sub-region to the path of development or to full regional integration. So there's no way that France and ECOWAS are opposed to the coup that we are discussing. Does not necessarily mean that France and ECOWAS are on the same page in what is happening in these countries.
Yeah, but they temporarily...
I give you an instance.
...are interested in...
No, but let me also... There are countries under French domination that we still complain about that are also resisting the military...
incursion, yeah?
No, military bases that are in those countries.
Yeah.
Chad, that is not part of the ECOWAS now, is asking them to go. Cote d'Ivoire is asking them to go.
But because they saw the courage from
what this
Niger,
is saying, that it is not coup that will ordinarily make you to be against the French domination that we are speaking about. So in that context, when we engage this issue as if it is one and the same, we are missing the point.
No, they are not one and the same, but engage it from the eye of the citizens who are supporting, who are happier.
Those same citizens are those who are suppressed now in the countries where the military boys are acting.
No, I agree with you. My point is that the way also some of the, especially civil society actors, are demonizing, condemning the people, that they are supporting the coup, even though the soldiers are going to turn against you later.
Of course.
We
don't have any evidence in West Africa where usually what follows them is popularity. That's populism. You see everybody be shouting, jumping, running into the streets to, acclaim them. But much time, go and write this down.
No, we know.
There are two things that are possible in the Sahel as it is, as presently constituted. We are going to witness successions of coups.
Like Niger, there's already...
We are going to witness dictatorship. Yes, in Niger, there are already two groups. So these are what you're going to find. And of course, that is also where I have drawn the line. Especially if you look at the nature of military rule that happened in Africa and the one that happened in Latin America or Asia. Military rule did not deliver good in Africa. But there are still some pockets of development people are able to point to in Malaysia, Indonesia, Peru,
but they pointed at
I say Peru, Chile, and several other areas.
In Libya.
What happened to the Gaddafi experiment?
No,
the same Africans were there supporting Americans to invade Libya. Today, ask them about military rule of Gaddafi and the democracy you thought you were handing over to them. Gaddafi just had interest in developing his country. And by the way, if you also interpret it, sub-Saharan Africa, I doubt whether those Northern Africa people really, in the true sense of it, they identify themselves much more with the Arabs than sub-Saharan Africa.
The reason I'm saying all this is that, especially when you said the worst democratic rule is better than...
If for freedom of speech alone...
Look at what is happening in Rwanda. What's going to happen after Kagame
leaves? I completely...
Because Kagame has transformed into a civilian rule.
And if you like, you say a dictator.
A dictator. And we are afraid that some of us are looking at Rwanda, and he doesn't even seem to have any successor in sight, a democratic
successor. I think for me, that is what we should, that your last statement should be what we should be more interested in than even what is happening. I know that what is happening in, but again, it's not as if there are no opposition.
Yeah, there are, but there are opposition. Allow them speak.
But the fact also remains that we should be much interested about a successor generation that also will not box some of this country into like what Zimbabwe became. That by the time death came knocking, it was like the country wasn't prepared. So the issue of human capacity development, the issue of nurturing, building a successor generation that will be able to continue with policies. Because at the end of the day, even the land issue that Mugabe was hanging on to was a last resort stuff, because that was the only thing left that you could hang on to that could bring the popularity. That is it. Yeah. I am not saying, but the question is, what is fundamental in a democracy is tenure system. Do your 2 terms and leave.
Or one term
depending on how you want it. But I know there was a time that was on the agenda of ECOWAS. And Ghana was also in the forefront pushing it. Wow. 2-term limits, go. Let another one come, another person come. Even if for nothing, let the person replenish, reinvigorate the system. So for me, that is what we should be pushing as an agenda in West Africa that can effectively take care of the military rule. The people can afford to having a change, or can afford to accept even a bad government, knowing that there is an appointed date that government is leaving. We are good even in Nigeria to say, Barakpata,
8 years.
You go 8 years. For me, I think that is good enough. And the fact that no matter what somebody tries to do, the person cannot take 100% of your voice. If you are taking it from Diego, Dauda is possibly somewhere to also raise it. Another person is possibly somewhere to raise it. We have seen it in this country that even under military regime, attempts were made to gag what people say and everything. For instance, until people like the popular people like Gani Fawehinmi, the Femi Falana, all others were in prison, you didn't actually knew some other persons were underground.
Underground, yeah.
Because it's like they were crowding out other progressive guys that could speak the truth to power. Until you saw that in the case of Colonel Umar in the north, or the Udubusi Kanu in the southeast, the Enahoros in the
Midwest,
south, and all these things, you didn't know. So, but that space that provided the opportunity for people to talk was further expanded in 1999 when we transited to democracy. And it is that space that we need to jealously guide and ensure that it functions. If you are going to have a flourishing democracy, free speech is essential. If you don't have free speech, you are certainly not practicing democracy.
So what's happening now? How is CDD worried about what's happening now in Nigeria, where there's the cyber bullying, cyber stalking law that is being used to gag free speech?
Well, I wish that just cyber bullying is where you really start it. You will start the conversation from where is the state of civil society now?
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is that even civil society is being ganged by the conversation we are having. You would have listened to several times attempts to bring a bill to the National Assembly to frozen the voice of civil society. And in having that conversation, I'm still going to drag you to what Kayode Fayomi has done in that aspect.
Yeah.
I remember as a program officer in CDD, I had the opportunity of organizing a workshop where civil society, I was in Lagos office then, where we had a conversation about how do you build the capacity of smaller civil society to engage the democratic process and what we can do. And I remember Kayode Fayomi moving the idea that he is moving that the bigger civil society, like CDD and Co., should establish a fund that they will be paying money into, where the smaller civil society who do not have enough grants can always pitch from to do regularization, due diligence, like do their annual audits, and also to be sure that they can freely operate in the society. And for a long time, it has not happened. If it has happened, the whole talk about we want to regularize civil society today will not be in the public domain, because what that would have meant is that on our own, we are doing self-accountability.
Yeah.
Yes, today we know that there are even several other structures that have been put in place for civil society accountability. The system is still not convinced. We report to several entities as it is, but the system is still not convinced that that is enough. Rather, they want to bring a bill to the National Assembly where they will be able to freeze voices. And that is a battle that has been on for long now. Anytime it is brought, civil society will come out and do all the explanation. They will withdraw it. They will bring it again. And I'm not sure that the conversation, we've not seen the end of that conversation.
You can hear the interlocutors now, the military saying civil society groups are responsible for supplying.
Of course, I watched that video.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just to give a dog a bad name so you can have the opportunity of hanging. So that is it. But again, it is in that context that I have argued that our democracy should not be left to politicians alone. They've taken the country for too much for a ride. And if you do that, you're gradually going to lose it.
Yeah.
And going to lose it. And I don't want us to lose it. So let's find a way to engage those who are currently in power.
Yeah.
And find a way to say, we are not necessarily enemies, but we are after strengthening our democracy. And if we have to strengthen this democracy, all hands must be on deck. With the political class, the civil society, who of course occupy the space between the people and the public office holders, or the public, if you like it. So beyond that conference, we are having to put in place programs or activities that are going to run towards the 2027 elections. Civil society are completely apolitical. But as Nigerians, we all need a country that works.
Apolitical or non-partisan?
Eh?
You are political, but
okay, sorry. We are political, but we are non-partisan.
Okay.
We all want a country that will function and work for the entire country. Is one of the things we are also pushing is it possible to have a country where the political class can say, irrespective of the political parties we belong to, there should be a line that no politician should cross. The moment you are crossing it, you are incurring the wrath of all Nigerians. That is what we want. And that is what we have seen in countries like Ghana. Looking at the recent elections, the man just said, we have our own election tabulation team, election result tabulation team that we established. And these people were doing the tabulation as the counting were going on. And based on the fact that they do not, the Electoral Commission wasn't using the different figures, that they were working with the same figures. There was no way, it was already obvious within 12 to 14 hours, within 12 hours after the election. It was already obvious where the results were headed. So by 14 hours after the elections, the man simply just called the opponent and congratulated the fellow. Can we get there?
Well, we did.
We took the lead. But after then, what happened? Look at what is happening in the country now. We all suffer, go to campaigns, in fact, conduct primaries, do campaigns, go to votes. After votes, results are declared. They will now be waiting for those in the judiciary to do their last, to cast their own votes. And so the moment they cast their vote, they are the last. They decide what happened to us at the end of the day. And in doing that, there have been claims and counterclaims about unwholesome practices that are happening. So these are the things. And in a situation where somebody that is already declared and sworn in, you have to fight him.
Starts making
you are fighting
a whole system.
A whole system.
Yeah.
Because the money for prosecuting those cases are no longer taken from private pockets, but they come from government coffers. So it's in this context that I think that we are not done yet with electoral reforms. We should find solutions to issues that make it impossible for you to ascend, to be sworn in, until
because the
litigations are concluded with.
Okay, just before we go, what would you say is the Donald Trump and his actions and things like already mooting the idea of a third term, amending the Constitution? There's already a senator talking of amending the Constitution within 2 weeks of Trump's ascent to power, and then the way he's using executive orders to take over the role of the legislature, things that the legislature should do. Is this portending a good example for democracy, especially for African countries that are mainly under the influence of the United States?
Well, I think generally, democracy is going through a tumultuous moment, globally.
Yeah.
And increasingly, populism is coming to take the space.
Yeah.
Using democracy. And the good thing is also about the fact that the way it is, whether you like it or not, whatever the people have chosen to be their way, whether bad or wrong, as long as it is that journey, the path to that journey was taken through democratic process, it seems to be allowable. So it means people can even vote a wrong candidate as long as
people voted Hitler.
Exactly. So that is it. But the fact also remains that I think what this has shown us, especially for those of us who have often interrogated the brand of democracy or liberal democracy that we practice, is that it gives cause for people to go back and do an appraisal about what they feel. So American democracy has already proved that it is not impregnable in terms of how it happened. And I am also sure, because it is happening in a society where there is rule of law, because within 24 hours after those 42 executive orders were released, they were already being challenged in court. And what that indicates is the fact that there is rule of law in the country. So nobody was, even if you act arbitrarily, people are going to find their ways to the courts, and the courts are going to take decision, and it's going to happen. And I know the much of the conversation you are having about the third term issue now is that if you run a country where both the House of Rep and the Senate are completely owned by the executive, you know what that means. But again, one good thing about the American democracy, given that it's been practiced for a long time, is also threatened, is the fact that there are provisions for mid-term elections. After 2 years, when it becomes obvious, like this musician will say, you don't know where they carry me go, Abi. When the when American people realize that they don't know where they are being taken, they use midterm elections to correct things. And I also believe that even the Democrats that have lost out in the elections are already currently working on reforms. In the same way we have always seen it, even in the UK, when the Tory and the Labour are also organizing themselves. We are seeing it now, how your sister is helping to reform the Tory in the UK. So that is what I think that at every particular point in time, even Nigeria should be doing. So whatever you think you are doing that are not institutional, or even if they are institutional, but they do not cohere with what they call, American has a way of always talk about this American dream. In 2 years, some of those things will be reversed.
Yeah.
By the time they are able to change, turn the table with a midterm elections.
Finally, just before we go, I know time is gone and I've been signaled. Just civil society is critical in West Africa, and Wax Off was a brainchild of the CDD. Now we have Wademos. What is CDD's position, or what is CDD? Is that in your agenda? How to reconcile them, or what is going to happen? Now we have two civil society coalitions side by side, and the one birthed by CDD is also in its own crisis before we now talk of.
Well, incidentally, CDD is connected with both Wademos and Wax Off.
Exactly.
Yes, it is true. CDD battered Wax Off. Wax Off is currently in crisis. ECOWAS is also very careful not to be seen as being on the side of any of the sides that are laying claim to it, and that one of the sides that is even laying claim is also having internal implosion on its own, in that an acting executive secretary was appointed and was given 6 months to turn an organization around, and an organization that has had its own challenges for a long time. I don't know how you'll be able to use 6 months to turn it around. They've also had appointed another person to do that. But the good thing also is that even the person that was removed after the 6 months or whatever, the person is also not interested in even forcefully laying claim. Is ready to let it go.
Yeah.
And all those things. And since coming on board as the director of CDD, I've had cause to have conversation with all the all the two sides now. I mean, talking in terms of the bloc. But the fact also remains that the West African sub-region will not have to wait for those conflicts among the organization, within the organization, to be resolved before the issues. Before the work is still there to be done.
Exactly. The issues are going on.
CDD is a co-chair of WADEMOS, West African Civil Society Democracy Solidarity
Organization.
Network. So, and I think that West Africa is big enough. The issues are also big enough that the more the merrier, the way I see it. And I also don't think that those are not just the two organizations that are in West Africa that are doing West African focused work. There is WANED. WANED have always been in existence for a long time. There is WACSI, West African Civil Society Institute, has also been in all this. This is a huge space that all these organizations are working in, including CDD. So for me, it's the more the merrier. And given the big push that work in this sub-region need to make things happen, I don't see anything about it. Rather, what we are doing is, across board, we are all collaborating to ensure that there is a single voice. For instance, the issue about term limits. Is it possible to have in every West African country 2-term limits for those who rule? If you have done it, even if people often complain about imposition, just do it and go. But there are going to be situations where you try to do it, it doesn't just work for you. So those are basic things. We need to also collaborate in addressing peace and security in the region. Whether you call them, in my first coming to CDD, the issues were largely about civil wars. within the country. Today, the issues have transcended beyond that.
Yeah.
There are now issues of banditry, issues of terrorism and counter-terrorism, issues of kidnapping, issues...
Which the West Africa Long-Term Perspective Study in 1994
exactly
actually foregrounded, you know.
Absolutely. And even those issues we identify as, I remember also in some of the major publications we've done in CDD, looking at the role of natural resources in all those things.
These conflicts
are now very, very ripe. That whether you call it banditry and everything, there's a role natural resource play in the mining of goods in the West African sub-region, from especially the Sahel, from northern Nigeria down to Niger, Mali. You know, there's a huge role that this natural resource also play in all those in all these conflicts that we are seeing. So there are also areas that one organization alone may not be able to do that. So continuously we need to work together. There are clearly issues of misinformation and disinformation now that are now creeping in the whole conversation. Earlier I just spoke about how suddenly Burkina Faso has become an El Dorado.
Making cars.
And meanwhile, we have people who are in Burkina Faso as civil society. And we hold regular meetings where we have a conversation about what is happening within the space of what is happening within the space of civil society in the office, and they are reporting how the oppression is happening or repression. They are also reporting about how some civil society are now being tagged as government civil society. So that polarization is also there. And of course, Nigeria has had its own share of this in those days of Association of Better Nigeria. Those who had to scuttle our June 12th. So for me, it's not something that we should, it's not a job that should be left to one organization. And like I will continue to say, the more the merrier. And we are all going to the same market to source for the fund that we use to work. And it's the responsibility of funders to decide who they trust more, or how do we also collaborate to have a working situation. And for those who have also begun to look at the desolate age of democracy, which is actually where we are now. I was watching Uhuru Kenyatta in one of these videos about people are crying that America is seizing money that is going to. Why are you crying? It's their own country and it's their money. You are not the one paying. It's their taxpayers' money. You don't pay tax in the US. So we've gotten to that point where we should talk to ourselves and say we need to get our democracy right in order that it can deliver the requisite development that we need.
Thank you very much, sir. This has been engaging, and we really look forward to having you more on Akweya TV for more conversations.
Thank you so
very
much.
much, sir.
It's my pleasure.
So thank you very much for being with us. We've run beyond the time, but I'm sure you enjoyed the conversation. Your opinion in the chat, please give us what you think, and then you can send us an email or WhatsApp. The numbers are scrolling and the email address. And then you can follow us on social media and all at Akweya TV. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having more of the conversations with you.